This was pre-expansion, so the expansion now, of course, is there. So it's been really fun to see all of that come to fruition and see all of our dreams and hopes. Boy, Windsor's just been going like gangbusters, and of course the recreation center's been tremendous. So we decided to come back. I worked at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln for 5 years for campus recreation and our outdoor adventure center. That's where my husband and I both went to college and met. I'm from Omaha, so we ended up in Lincoln. And we had an opportunity to come back. My husband was the publisher of the Windsor Now, and the Windsor Now existed. So he worked for Swift Communications, and Eyes Wide Open, working for Swift Communications again. So we had that opportunity to come back, and we have always loved Windsor. We've loved Colorado. We were in Colorado for a couple of years prior to moving here, down in Castle Rock. But Windsor really captured our hearts, and that's where our children have grown up. One graduated from Windsor in 2014, one will graduate this year from Windsor High School, and they are thrilled to be back as well with us. So couldn't be happier to be back, and was very excited that there was an opportunity to come back to the recreation center in the town of Windsor.
And my neighbor for about, what, 10 years, probably?
Yeah. Yeah, are you still there?
I still am.
Are you? I
Yep.
wish we were still.
I know.
I wish we were still.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yes, down the street, just from both of you, both you and Dennis.
Backyard neighbors.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Now we know why she moved here.
It's very true, actually. It's more true than you know.
Did you ever replace Molly? Did you get the dog you
Molly
really wanted?
passed away a year and a half ago, yeah. I'm sorry, we don't need to bring that up, yeah.
Oh, darn.
Are
Great
your
dog.
kids gonna be
13 years.
Well, I would say the one that went to the university for 3 years, he has fond memories and will remember that. And once again, we came from that college, so yes, sure.
And you're
The
a senior.
youngest,
Yeah.
yeah, I think he will probably never think of Nebraska again, except for relatives. Grandma and grandpas are there, and aunts and uncles, but yeah, it was a good time, but he really missed Windsor and all his friends here, so given that gift to come back and graduate is quite a blessing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, welcome. Glad to have
Thank
you back.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I appreciate it.
Do one more?
Nope. So that person's not there.
Remember that. Okay.
So, Terry?
Terry?
Hi, I'm going to introduce Jason Willis. The supervisor is Brian Rowe, our street superintendent. So Jason came to us about a month and a half ago, and so I'll let Jason stand up and talk about what he's done and what he's doing now.
First and foremost, I don't like public speaking. It's a little less than 20 years ago I made my way from a little town way out west, Fort Collins. Ran from it and I don't ever look back anymore. I don't know, it's a long story, but I rode my bicycle around this town first 2 nights. I was out here, we bought a building and we're fixing it up. And everybody I rode past were like, hey, we don't recognize you, come here. And just very welcoming, and it's pretty much been that way ever since. I used to have a little bicycle shop here in town. Fortunately, somebody else opened one up, so I closed mine instantly. Restored cars and stuff, got to know a bunch of people there. 5 years out of Vestas overnights. Then I took a working vacation and worked at a liquor store for just over a year and kind of reconnected after being on a night shift. That was kind of nice to get back to knowing the town and what I do. I was out at the Charter Academy, so I was their facilities manager, director, whatever, for a good while. And so I had 1,000 kids for a while, and I went to work. When they started on the mill, I wanted to manage that building. We all know how that ended up, unfortunately. So, long and short, I went and played with big heavy equipment and installed really cool signs. There in Windsor again, Da Vinci, and got tired of driving down the interstate. I got real fortunate. I got on as a seasonal with these gentlemen, and a month or so later, I got an opportunity to grab the street sweeper. And they, they opened it up for a lot of cross training and everything. It's a nice little fit. I love this little town, so there I am.
will you let us know? Let me give you my address.
No special favors for town board.
That's what we wanted.
I've only plowed pickups and smaller, so. Bigger trucks, so that's definitely.
We'll get him there.
Yeah, it takes time, those are not toys, so.
So it means this, that the windrows for board members have to be less than 3 feet tall.
That's what we call the south.
Well, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely, welcome.
Welcome back.
Welcome back, really, yes.
You still riding your bike on?
Oh, yeah. I was up to 300 bicycles, back down to, I think, 40, so that's a bad
Some people help
Instead of a
you.
3-car garage, you have a 60 bicycle yard.
Yeah, well, I still have 5 or 6 cars too. So. Bad habits. But they're good ones. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome again. Mike, we have Kimberly?
In the next one, Jessica.
Oh, Jess is gonna do it.
So I'm going to introduce Kim French. She's our administrative assistant in customer service. She makes it a full house up there. She is our face. She is that first window, and it's wonderful to have her aboard. She's always bright and chipper and has a great greeting for us. She does come from CDOT, but I'll let her explain everything else.
So thank you very much, Jess. Like Jess said, I was the face of CDOT in their new building off of 34 for a couple of years, and I'm very excited to be here. I am a Windsor resident, raised my daughter here. She just graduated from high school. She'll be going to Front Range, and I love Northern Colorado. I'm from Southern California, Disneyland area, so it was very different for me moving here, but I love the small community, and I love saying to my kiddo that I'm going to run to the grocery store, and she's like, I'll see you in 45 minutes. And I'm like, but it's only like 6 minutes away. And she's like, seriously, I'll see you like in an hour, because I know everyone there, and I have to catch up with everyone when I'm there. And so I have to remember when I'm here working that I'm supposed to be working and not visiting with everybody. And when they call and say, is this Kim? Yes. And they're like, oh, chat. And I'm like, okay, I do my job, so do you want to pay the bill? But no, I absolutely love Northern Colorado. I like having almost 4 seasons. We didn't really get much of a spring, summer, but we jumped right in. I love being here, and I'm super excited about this opportunity to work here in the town of Windsor. So, thank you.
I'm really glad to have you.
Thank you very much.
It's really neat, really neat. We always say that you're only as good as the people that work for the town, because you're the ones that are out there that are serving their people, so I really appreciate all of you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Great, and you're welcome to stay.
You're
for
welcome to
another-
stay.
Break my heart.
So really, you
Are
can.
No, I'm kind of taking it personally.
That never got out of me. No.
We leave.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've been just going for about 7
That'd be like home.
Yeah, we get that.
Yeah, my son's in Ames now, or he's here now, but for the summer, he's in Iowa State.
Welcome. I should see you later, Tyler. Yeah.
Yes. Well, and you
Your skin is not as thick as his.
Yeah. I'm like, I'm glad, I tried to come in and do nuclear irrigation, but it's just, he was probably wearing a hat that day. That's the.
Right, they got a beard.
Yeah, he had, his hair was much longer than.
Right, we get it. Are you leaving the water here, or is John?
You know what, I think that we've got, we've got Carl here, so, I think, yeah, I guess I can kind of get it started out. So everybody knows that NISP is still moving forward. We've talked for a while about kind of the short-term financing option and what that's going to look like for the town. Obviously there's been a lot of questions out there for NISP. I think we know that the town has is signed up for maybe a $100 million project, or maybe more, maybe less. So it seemed like a good idea to get Carl here to give everybody an update just on the project, how it's going. Let the board ask some good questions so everybody feels comfortable as they see this reflected in the 2020 budget. So that, I don't know if you want to, I teed you up perfectly.
Sure, no, that's wonderful. First, I'm going to embarrass Dennis.
That is good. Yeah. We've only got a couple more weeks for that.
Let's all take turns.
I realized recently Dennis has become kind of the last of the Mohicans. The original NIST participants, when we went out and were talking to folks back clear out, I don't know, it was like 2000 to 2002, you came on as part of the NIST participant committee. And I think you are the last, you and Gary Karsten. Gary just retired, and so it's a new group of kids now that I've got, but you're going to be missed. It's been wonderful working with you. I've enjoyed it. You've given a good bit of wisdom and occasionally good advice as well. So
I hear that a lot too.
yeah. So no, and you will get an invite to the celebrations that we have. I'm hoping, hopefully first quarter of this coming year we'll have a celebration. We're going to get that record of decision, and I think that's the time to celebrate. Certainly when we have groundbreaking, but we don't want to wait 3 years. We want to do that sooner. But first off, I'm going to start out with a fun little thing here. We just had this animation done, and this is of the Glade area. What you're seeing is the diversion of the Poudre Valley Canal off the river. And I'll kind of explain it. It doesn't have any nifty soundtrack to it. We have to add that, maybe some guitars and whatnot. But so
this is
here we
coming
go.
down off the Poudre Canyon?
This is coming off the Poudre. So we're in the Poudre Valley Canal.
God bless America.
Yeah, I feel that way too. So there's the forebay and the dam. Forebay is, of course, what the reservoir dumps into, or the Poudre Valley Canal dumps into, and then the pump station there is what lifts it up into Glade Reservoir. You know, how can anybody be against this? It's a thing of beauty. That's the spillway that we just went by. Multi-level tower, so that's what's going to be delivering your water out of the reservoir. We go up the west thumb of Glade and then circle back. It's clear water. I like to think that this is going to have excellent clarity. Be interesting boating too, where there's two little islands are. They come out in and out depending on the water level. So the Brower Beer Bait and Boat Propeller Shop is going to do well.
So is this at full capacity then?
This is full. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's like maybe 2025? Does that seem
It seems about right. Maybe 2027 or so. And then looking over here is where the recreation is, where the road is going up to the abutment there. That you have a parking lot, some boat ramps, and then there's going to be some camping areas in there as well. And that's something that we're talking to Larimer County about right now. So we're going to put that up on our website here soon. But I think we also have a similar one for Highway 287. I did bring that along, but that one's kind of fun too. You can kind of drive along 287 relocation. So I always start out with the who. It is you. You and the other 14 NIST participants are what we're doing this project for. Over the years, there's been a little bit of rearrangement of shares. Some of the more recent, both Severance and Dacono have picked up a little bit of Fort Lupton's. And I think there's going to continue to be a little bit of rearrangement as we move forward. I think there's a couple of participants, Erie being one, that is looking at maybe reducing theirs a little bit, but I think others will definitely step in eventually and pick that up. So
do you anticipate all that really happening after the record decision?
We're kind of encouraging that. If it's within the group, we're fine kind of it happening anytime, but if it does happen to be outside of the group, I'll take a Wellington who's expressed interest. We just assume that be after the record of decision and such. So why are we in this? Certainly you're, I'm sure, very aware, or your water board certainly is aware that there's just less CBT on the market. That graph down below, I think it cuts out in the year 2010, but the way it continues is about right. Here we are nearing 2020, and it's just we're getting pretty close to flatlining. We're not seeing a lot of transfer anymore. And of that green line, that agricultural ownership, it should be noted that much of that is actually North Poudre and the 40,000 units that they hold, of which I think 75% of North Poudre is actually owned by municipal. So there's not a lot of CBT left. Not buying dry. That I think was one of the main reasons we got into this project to begin with, was buying dry being the main alternative to this project. About 60,000 acres of land would have to be retired to make up the equivalent yield of 40,000 acre feet. And that's, I think, why Northern really promoted moving this direction.
How many acres?
60,000. So if you think about what Thornton bought about 20,000, so it's a Thornton times 3 would be what was needed to get equivalent amount of yield. Glade really will give you a lot of storage and flexibility, and we're kind of working through that. But that 12,000 acre, or that 3,000 acre feet you yet own of yield in the project basically will entitle you to the use of a little over 12,000 acre feet of reservoir storage in Glade. And when you integrate that in with some of your other supplies, that's going to be very valuable, very useful. I use the next one sparingly, affordable. This project definitely has gone up in price. We're at about 30,000 acre feet plus, or $30,000 per acre foot plus. CBT, though, for better or for worse, has outpaced us dramatically. We're at about 70,000 acre feet. So, you know, basically for those who have stuck in this project, which is the vast majority of all the NIST participants, you know, they're going to get a water supply that's going to be roughly half the cost of the market rate of CBT going out there.
And Carl, before you move, you mentioned the flexibility in storage.
Sure.
Does that mean that we could, you guys probably have a better question than I have, but I mean, could we carry CBT water in there?
You can't put CBT in it. Early on in the project, we were planning on that, and the Corps of Engineers said, if you want to do that, you need to carry your EIS down the Colorado River. And we said, no, thank you. So, but when you start, you know, you do have flexibility in how you can use that CBT too. So there may be years that you're drawing more heavy on CBT, leaving more sitting in storage, and vice versa. In other years, you may want to take more out of it.
Sure.
And we're going to work through that and put together operational agreements to better define that. But it's something that we've sold with this project from the get-go, is the flexibility that storage would afford you. And we want to definitely keep that.
So what we don't use, we could leave it?
Absolutely. It's yours.
Up to 12,000?
Yeah, I mean, effectively, until it's full, you have unlimited carryover in a way in that bucket.
How does that, right now, if we don't use all our water this year, we can carry over 20%?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
So how does this relate to what you just talked about?
Well, in
Or
theory,
how's it 20%?
you don't have to take a drop out of your storage bucket in a given year.
Okay.
In theory. In practice, there's going to be a certain amount that we need, folks, because of the river stuff and whatnot. But I think this is where John, you left me. John, you know, with your staff working out for your particular situation, how, with the mix of supplies that you have, how it will be better. We've done some scenario playing of what if someone had a third native supply, a third CBT, and a third NISP, but it's really interesting to see how they play together. Obviously, you want to use those supplies that are use it or lose it first, your natives.
Gotcha, okay.
CBT is probably in there, but how this plays, there are some characteristics of NISP. Some of it is reusable, and that may be attractive. If you have the ability to do something with the reuse, say you have some wells you need augmenting or something like that. So we're purposely, and we've talked about this at length of the operations of NISP and how it gets integrated into the carriage or the allotment contracts, and we're purposely wanting to make sure that we maintain the flexibility so we don't lock this down too tight in the allotment contract. So there will be an operating agreement that can be changed from time to time as we learn more about the project too. So, goal, 40,000 acre feet of new water. But it comes with a price tag. A lot of infrastructure, and infrastructure right now is it's not cheap.
One of my questions was that last slide, where are you coming up with the 30,000 per acre foot?
So if you take 1.2 billion, divide by 40,000 acre feet, then you come up with the 30.
So I guess then the question comes back to where are you at with 1.2 billion?
Probably up from there. And it's going to be largely dependent on when we do it, and I'm going to get into a cost model here in a little bit.
Sorry.
Which has escalation rates and all that, that we're very careful to say it's 1.2 billion in 2018 dollars, and those dollars are inflating.
Okay. And Carlos, Gailton, is that 20,000 acre feet?
Gailton is 45,000 acre feet.
Okay, well, because you mentioned earlier the 60,000 acre feet, and now it's 40. You mentioned the last slide it was 60,000 acre feet.
I'm sorry, well, so in total to make this project a firm project for you all, that's the point of the storage. So to make 40,000 acre feet happen, much like CBT is a total of almost 1 million acre feet, but to make that 220,000 acre feet average annual yield, we have to have all that storage to make that happen.
So 60,000 acre feet is the storage you have.
At Gailton, it's 45,000 acre feet.
This.
Did I put a wrong number?
You got 45,600 right here.
Okay, good.
No, I guess what I'm getting lost is you mentioned the 60,000 acre feet, and now it's 40.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misspoke if I said 60. That should be 40,000 acre feet.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's what I get for taking notes. Okay, I'm back.
I think the 60,000 is the price per acre. By the time you get done.
So I talked a little bit, you got to see the video of how Glade works. Of course, water going into it, water going out via the delivery pipeline system. Then the Gailton unit.
Would you be limited as to when you can draw into Glade? Would you try to do it during flood periods?
That's pretty much when you have to do it.
Yeah.
Spring runoff is the primary time. Yeah. And then there's years. This year would have been a so-so year. We would have been able to put water in, but oddly, even as good as the snowpack was, it came off very, very slow. And some of the other ditches then were able to take the slack, and they came in. But there were periods of no call that we would have been able to come in, fill that as well as, or put water into it as well as put water into Gailton. There was a period on the Platte as well that we could have done that.
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
There's no call. We use that to fill up our Tiger pit.
Uh-huh.
Would that take away water that we would use to put in our pit?
Depending on the water rate that you use.
Yeah, we're senior.
If
Who's senior here, right?
What's that?
Or Tiger.
Isn't it no call on the river then it's?
Well, I use the term no call because we're so junior. We actually, the water right associated with this is a 1980 water right. So depending on whether you're junior or senior to that. One of the other things I would suggest is you may want to start talking to the Cashel-Cooter Water Users Association. The entire Glade Reservoir right has not been spoken for. They own 1/8 of that, about 22,000 acre feet. And they would be one that you might talk to kind of put a happy home on a water right to that.
Is that the Gray Mountain?
That's the Gray Mountain Decree. And in fact, I think it would be good if they found diligence for that. Otherwise, if they don't find diligence, they're going to lose that aid. Northern obtained in 1985 7/8 of the old Gray Mountain right, the whole 220,000, and then the Cashel-Cooter Water Users retained 1/8 of that for use by their members, and you're a member of Cashel-Cooter Water Users. So water going up to Gailton, coming back out, doing the exchanges. And I'll talk a little bit more about our relationship with the ditch companies and then the Water Secure program.
The arrows didn't show, sorry, on that last, the arrows didn't show how the water got to Gallatin?
They go up. Let's see.
Oh, I see. You come back.
So water goes up. It can go both ways in that piece of the pipeline, that part of the pipeline that's north. And then it leaves. So typically we're filling during spring, but also during the wintertime. It's not uncommon for us for there not to be a call during the wintertime that we can draw water off the Platte. So, you sure you don't want to stick around, Dennis? The light is literally
The light at the end of the tunnel.
It's a train coming.
That is not a train. It looks a lot like go to the light.
That's where I come in, the insurance on the other end of the tunnel.
Yeah. So where we're at, in 2017 we successfully went through the State Fish and Wildlife Mitigation and Enhancement Program with the state and received their blessing and the governor's signature on that. The final environmental impact statement was put out there in 2018, about a year ago. We submitted our 401 certification application. We're working through the permit conditions right now with the state of Colorado Department of Health on that. And we're expecting here, hopefully sometime this fall, we'll receive that certification from them. Also this fall, finalize our biological opinion with Fish and Wildlife Service. We actually received a biological opinion, positive one, clear back in 2007, and we're updating that just to tidy things up. So that leads to a record of decision late this year. Probably, I expect early next year. Is where we're at on that. Just in the we had a meeting with them last week, and I think they're still showing it at the end of this year, but I think with some of the other things that have to happen, it's probably going to be early 2020.
And Carl, just to, and I know this is totally out of your control, but initially the record decision was going to be end of 2018, and then it was spring of 18, and then, spring of 19, and then it was really quickly end of 19.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm hearing kind of spring of 20. Is there any, just to make a decision, is there any time frame that anything that they have to fall within? Or can we really be here in a year saying, well, we're hoping for spring of 21?
Well, we're to the point now where we're literally talking about the final permit conditions, and I know they're writing the draft record of decision as we speak. So I think we're basically what we're waiting for, and what we were waiting for then was the 401 certification. that has to be done before they can issue the record of decision. And so that's what's taken the time. Not so much the Corps of Engineers, but the state of Colorado has taken the time. And we're down to the final conditions with them, and they're talking about, I think we have our last scheduled meeting with them in September, and then I'm expecting that we'll get a permit out of them.
That has a timeline that they have to find.
That has a definite timeline. If they don't act by February, it's automatically approval.
Okay. So they have that.
If who doesn't act?
If the state of Colorado does not act on the 401, it automatically becomes an approval. They have 1 year, and we submitted in early February.
Okay, and then is this kind of, if they're working on the draft, Ron, right now, I mean, did you get a look under the tent at all? I mean,
No, we
discussions,
don't.
you know? So,
Other than everything we're talking about is Glade Reservoir, so I kind of expect the project that we're gonna get permitted is Glade Reservoir.
So do they come back with a record of decision, you said, with like stipulations, basically, or with, what was the word that you used?
Permit conditions?
Conditions?
Yeah.
So do those have to be executed or, found, how they're gonna play out or how they're gonna work or get done, et cetera,
So
before
it's a permit that we receive then, and the permit says, you receive the permit, however, you need to do these things. Most of those things are the things we've already committed to in the State Fish and Wildlife and Mitigation Plan, or the water quality aspects of the 401. The big thing that we're talking about right now, and actually you all are a little bit part of this, is wetlands. And where you're part of it is the Eastman Park area and finalizing the wetland plan with them. So these are all the kind of the loose ends that are getting tidied up. But we're done with the analyses. All the water quality stuff and everything, it's done. And we're just kind of working through the conditions one by one.
okay, so that was a long way of, I mean, I know you got a couple other questions, but you do feel confident that we'll be end of this year or really spring of?
I feel
20?
more confident about it spring than I do late this year.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And then finally, something that we may want some help from you all, Larimer County and their IGA, and it's primarily for two things. The recreation at Glade, I think that's the easy button. It's a new recreation site for the county, so that it's great. The other is the pipeline part, and we're going through it, down a parallel corridor to what Thornton did. We've made modifications to that. We're taking a different approach, doing an IGA as opposed to the actual 1041. Our first meeting is going to be next week, Wednesday in the afternoon. I think it's at 1 o'clock, and that's going to be 3 of our board members meeting with their 3 Board of County Commissioners, and then staff will be there too. And it's meant to be kind of a negotiation session. We have that, we have then, and we have another one in September, and there's a possibility of a third. And then there will be public hearings towards the end of this year. That doesn't have to happen for this record of decision. However, we do need to get it. And they don't want to end up in another lawsuit. We don't want to end up in a lawsuit. We do a lot with Larimer County. And so both of us want this to be a success, but it will be very helpful for you all, town board members, the mayor, to come out and talk about the importance of it when we get to that hearing phase at the end of this year. Sure. That will be very important.
So since Fort Collin Loveland is in this, do you have a sense of how many Larimer County residents would be served by this project?
I don't. I mean, I remember numbers on the order of 50,000 or so, but I don't know how up to date those are because, a large part of Timnath Grove is served by Fort Collins, Loveland, of course, western Windsor, and then the southern side of Fort Collins. So all of that part in Larimer County. It's a lot.
It just seems like it may be worth having that as you talk to them about.
Oh, yeah.
Why this is important.
That, absolutely. Well, and the other thing that we're trying to do too is, we're all part of northern Colorado. And the county line up here is an artificial line. I mean, folks in Windsor go into Fort Collins and vice versa. And I think the county recognizes that. It's quite a bit different than a Denver metro area coming up. Mm-hmm. So we're gonna make a point out of that as well. This is, honestly, the bulk of this project is for Weld County. For the I-25 corridor, the lion's share when you look at the communities up here, as well as Frederick, Firestone, Dacono, and so on. It's for Weld County. So the picture up here, this is something that just got put in as part of the project. This is the first of our mitigation projects. It was a real success. The Noosa Yogurt and Morning Fresh Dairy helped pay for half of it, to the tune of about $400,000, and the participants paid the other. The NIST participants paid the other half. The cool thing was a week before they put some fish in the river and tagged them, and then they put a radio transmitter in somewhere up in here to see how many of them actually made it. And in the course of a week, about half of them actually decided to go upstream. So the thing actually works. And we had a nice dedication. Trout Unlimited was there for that as well, and did some talking. And so, it's interesting how things come around after a long, long time.
You might have to explain how that happens. I see fish passage. I'm not sure what you're. But then you say upstream, so now I'm
so
intrigued.
You have a diversion structure here. Fish can't go up it. They come in here. It's a ramp that has rocks embedded into the ramp. And I don't know if you've probably seen in the Pacific Northwest the fish ladders. Those would be for salmon. You can do similar ones for trout, but for the native fish, the little bitty fish that are native to the river, they need like a long, flat slope. And that's what this does, gives them a 4%. It's like a long wheelchair ramp with rocks embedded in it. But it's working, and that's good.
So is Trout Unlimited, what's their level of support?
So they gave an endorsement to our Fish and Wildlife Mitigation Plan. Okay. They actually stood up before the Fish and Wildlife Commission and gave an endorsement. So I'm good with that. I'm not going to push it much.
No, that's good.
They came on our East Slope tour as well 2 weeks ago, and we went and stopped there with about 100 folks on our East Slope tour, and they did a little spiel, and we're thankful for Northern doing this. So I think we have a good relationship. Yeah. The other things.
Are those fish still tagged? Can I get the radio frequency?
That's what I'm saying. Well, where do you
now I know where.
Yeah.
GPS.
I think you have to have the exact type of receiver, but yeah, they're there.
Just ask Dean. He knows how to catch all those small fish. He can
just as small.
I'm just minding my own business.
He brought the checkbook. Be quiet. He's good.
And some of the other parts of the Fish and Wildlife Enhancement Program that we're moving forward with. So next steps, continue to work on the Glade Reservoir design. We're about to 29% in holding. We aren't able to hit that 30%. We keep doing more geotechnical work, but we're essentially at about a 30% design, and those plans were submitted to the Corps of Engineers as well this spring as part of our actual permit application. Pipeline is underway. Pipeline design 287 is Coordination with CDOT is underway. Then we have river diversions, as well as all the environmental compliance that comes along with building something like this. So design, financing, land and right-of-way, contracting, environmental, and finally construction is what's needed in the implementation. So we've got a lot of work to do. This gives a schedule. So Glade ready in 2027, Gailton ready in 2028. And that graph that you see there shows kind of when we're looking at the design activities as well as over into construction.
Can I knock on wood a second?
Yeah.
Assuming the record of decision comes in the spring,
Uh-huh.
let's assume it does, and there's any more, I mean, at that point, is it full steam forward, even though there may be other litigation that might still be trying to, you know, move forward as well? I mean, what gets held up on account of any other litigation that might happen after the record of decision?
So right now, we're making an assumption that, well, there will be litigation. They've said they're going to sue. I'm quite certain they're going to sue. Based on how things are going with the Chimney Hollow or Windy Gap Firming project litigation, that's kind of giving us a bit of a roadmap of timing. We're assuming roughly about a 3-year litigation window. And while we're doing that, that's when we're doing all the final design work, is during that window, and getting things all ready for the basically have it ready, shovel ready by the time we come out of litigation.
So nothing can go to shovel?
You can. It's at risk, but things that aren't in wetlands, you can start moving on. So the outlet tunnel, if we decided to work on the outlet tunnel, it's not in the wetlands, we could do that. You could do a good chunk of the highway relocation. So, and there gets to be some strategy. You don't want to do it right away, but ultimately on the Chatfield project where they're raising the pool of Chatfield, and there was litigation on that, similar type litigation, they finally said, we're moving forward, and they started moving dirt, and the litigants asked for preliminary injunction, and they lost, and that was that. So there's some strategy that at a certain point you say, okay, we're going to go do something, because typically they aren't asking for an injunction. Injunctions can cost money. The lawsuits, I don't know what they spend on the lawsuits, but and the lawsuit, by the way, is against the federal government. So the Department of Justice is who is actually defending the suit on our behalf. We'll enjoin ourselves, so we'll be part of it, but you're getting the DOJ. And if they ask for an injunction, you can ask for a bond, because you can show, okay, you're holding things up. And then it gets very, very expensive on their part. So when we get far enough along, we'll need to be starting to make some of those strategic decisions.
And that's going to be really, the NISP committee, and really with direction from all the elected officials of, there's risk, right? I mean, everything we're doing now is risk because we don't have a record of decision. But there's also, I guess, just the risk of costs going up, and in fact, we all need the water. So I think that this is, as we get closer and closer to that lawsuit, my assumption is that we're gonna have our NISP representatives giving the board updates, letting you know where we are, and when we're kind of coming to that point of, hey, look, we think we should start spending some money here, that's gonna be a presentation that this board and every board listed here that really needs to make that call.
Yep. So the big one, for Dean. So that 1.2 billion, Windsor's share of that is right at $100 million. We're kind of assuming right now that the design we'll continue to do over the next 3 years is going to be funded with cash. So we do have an interim agreement for 2020 that will be $10 million. So pretty similar to the interim agreement for this year. Of that, $825,000 would be Windsor's share. We also have a $20 million interim financing that we're hoping to get completed later this summer. Windsor is evaluating whether to bring cash or financing, is my understanding, and I don't know if you've made that decision yet or not.
We'll go back through the rate model process again this
Yeah.
fall. We'll evaluate the new costs and come up with whether we can.
Yeah. Either
cash
works.
all of that or finance portion.
Yeah, right now, if we took the people that we're pretty certain are bringing cash, it's around $12 million of actual NISP finance, and then about $8 million worth of cash coming to the table. That's going to be used for primarily land purchase. Land at the Gailton site, land that Northern Water does not presently own up at the Glade site, and then a certain amount of what I'll talk about is water secure as well. But the lion's share is really going towards, I think the largest expenditure will be for the Gailton Reservoir site and getting that tied up.
And what year is the 20 million?
That will be,
2020 is
no, actually this year. So
2019?
2019 is when we'll be coming to you for that contract, and likely September-ish. We have a legal committee working through all the details on that. We've got to get a contract put together with the financing, the bank that BBVA is who we're going through. They had the best terms. We went out for kind of bid on that, and BBVA had the best terms, so that's who we're going with. So that will be coming to you, again, probably in the September-ish timeframe. It'd be nice if it were August, but I don't know if we're going to be able to make that or not.
Refresh my memory, because I had in my head that Northern was going to arrange the financing and then bill each community. Okay, that's where we still are.
Yeah.
So we'd be looking at annual payments toward the 20 million.
That would not, yeah, and the payments wouldn't start happening until, let me back up. The financing associated with this is going to be just a loan draw, and you will pay interest only on the loan draw. The principal will be due at the end of 5 years, but we're assuming at the end of 5 years we'll receive the final financing, and that final bond financing will basically pay off this debt.
So with the $20 million, then, I mean, it's not like you need $1.7 million from the town of Windsor that day. I mean, this is something.
If it's cash, we do.
You need it that day.
We'll need
Well,
it.
I'm just saying, is it something that we could carry into the 2020 budget and actually budget for? Or is it something you would need this fall?
That would be something that we would need this fall.
Okay.
It will go into a interest-bearing account. It's not gonna earn a lot of interest. I mean, it's kind of like your own earned interest. I think we use the same folks they're the same institution that you use for your short-term monies. But,
Yeah, like a C-save for that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
it's 1.5% or in that neighborhood.
So what you're saying is, at some point this year, you'll collect 20 million from all the participants?
Yeah.
And we
Well,
can share
we'll
what-
collect or you'll be signed up for the finance. The point of the finance is to hold off on making payments. Basically, you're just gonna be making interest payments on whatever loan draw that we've
We
made.
will have to make a decision to
Yeah.
become
Right.
was it 1.7?
1.6.
Yeah, it's like
1.65.
1.65.
Or
Yeah.
make payments.
And
Double
Carl,
it.
right now, there's about 7 million or so of cash funding in that 20 million and 13 million
Yeah.
being financed.
About 10.
Okay.
I think 5 are bringing cash for sure right now, and 10 are not, but there's 1 or 2 who are, because initially we were looking at substantially more for this. We were looking on the order of 70 million, and we've really trimmed it down. And some have said, you know, like you guys do, well, actually we'll just pay.
Right, so if you remember the rate study that we did last fall, we were thinking it was 70 million, and we based it all on the project being financed 70% versus 30% cash funded. But now that that number has dropped significantly, we might be able to cash fund this interim portion entirely.
When you have on this chart finance versus cash, you mean whether we would decide to finance that?
Right.
You want a lump sum of money you want from us?
Well, no, either you'll be part of a group who will go with a financing package. You'll sign up for that, or you would bring cash. Now, how you get the cash is up to you, whether you're financing it yourself or you have it in the bank.
Carl, what's the difference between the interim agreement? I understand the interim financing and what that's for, but what's the interim agreement?
The interim agreement, everybody is gonna have to sign, because it's saying, we're gonna go do these things, here are your rights within that. There's a lot of words on what if all else fails, how do we, they call it wrap up. How do the assets get disposed of?
Sure.
And so there will be an agreement that essentially it's saying, you give us money, and for that money, here's what we do, but here's, in the event that worst case things happen, here's how things would take place. And I don't know, do you have anything to add on that? You've been part of the legal.
So I've sat through some of these meetings, and the conversation, Carlos characterized it fairly. If the project falls apart after these assets have been acquired with the borrowed money and the cash contributions, we've got to figure out a way to dispose of the assets and pay the money back to those who paid in. And so we've talked about a number of scenarios where that could happen, and the terms of the agreement have to accommodate the people who paid cash, because if one of my questions was, if Windsor pays cash and then the assets are disposed of, I want to make certain that Windsor gets its share of the cash before the banks are paid off for their share of the borrowed money. So during that conversation, we talked about making the distribution of the cash proceeds from those sales split proportionally among those who paid cash and those who borrowed the money. So we're still talking about the terms of this agreement, but I thought the meeting we had last week, it certainly opened my eyes, but I think we made a lot of conceptual progress on how that wind-up might happen if the project doesn't go and the assets have been acquired.
What's the use of funds on the 20 million this year?
The use of funds,
Mostly purchasing of lands and water secure. And
yeah, primarily, and even the water secure portion is during this phase of, and I'll talk about this in water secure, it's purchasing land and water, basically farms out in the Eaton area.
And then next year, it looks like this 10 million next year is somehow kind of a separate bucket.
It is. It's not being used for purchasing the assets. It's continued. The budget is very similar to what we're doing this year, which is continuation on design, continuation of, actually I'd say the design is the lion's share, staff time, legal time, all those type of things. Right-of-way acquisition, we are planning on right-of-way, purchasing right-of-way, particularly in what we're calling time-sensitive areas, and that's primarily along County Line Road here. It's just getting built up really quick, and we need to get a right-of-way in there. So that's primarily what the 10 million would go for.
If we contribute cash toward the 20, is that more or less just an equity investment unsecured? Because if you're part of a financing group, nobody loans money, well, you can loan money unsecured. What's the security for the payback of that?
The security is basically the contracts. We're trying and our best. We haven't gotten into negotiations, but we're trying our best to keep those assets at arm's length. That basically it is the contracts that we have with those who have taken out a loan.
So would you rather be a lender than an equity contributor? It feels to me like the rights of those who contribute funds via financing are different from those who contribute funds via cash. I don't know, I mean, I could sketch out the actual flow of funds and understand the financing deal, but.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand that too, especially when you talked about if it doesn't go, how do we get reimbursed? Who's got, if it's a loan versus we already put money in, who owns the assets? I'm trying to picture all this.
At its simplest, this is how I look at it, David. It's like a partnership where some of the partners are putting in borrowed money for their share of the capital account, and others are just finding cash. And what the partnership is trying to do is keep the assets from becoming security for the borrowing partners' shares. So that the bank doesn't walk in and have collateral interest in assets that we've all paid for, but some of us have paid cash and some of us have borrowed.
But they may secure what the partnership is. They'd be able to step into the shoes of the borrower as a participant.
They would have a right of action and as secure a promise as a local government, in our case, can make for future payments. And the transaction hasn't been negotiated yet with the bank. But the idea is the bank doesn't get collateral in the stuff we're buying with the 20 million.
Right.
The bank gets collateral in the individual pledges that each borrowing participant presents.
So it'd be like anything, we have to show due diligence that we could make the obligations.
Right, yes, for example, if Erie finances it, Erie's pledging with the bank its own assets, it's not pledging the NISP assets. So the obligations between Erie and the lender and their assets.
Which is why you want the cash to be paid out first, if things dissolve.
Well, and then it would go proportionally out, so Erie would still get its proportion, just like the town would, and then Erie would satisfy its own lender.
But that would then be secured probably by general fund assets or something else, but that sounds like, I mean, that's not municipal borrowing, that you can't just go do.
Well, if it's an enterprise, you can. If it's under your water
within
fund.
your enterprise.
Yep.
So that's the other component of this, is it's the water enterprise that's transacting these deals.
Right.
It's not a general obligation of the town.
Okay.
And it's not a multiple fiscal year obligation of the town or the utility.
So if it is a financing deal, they're lending against the presumed cash flow within the enterprise.
Yes.
Our ability to pay.
So their collateral is really
The
future
promise.
fees.
Right, and you remember that in the rate model study, that's why we had to have that 30% cash in order to satisfy the lenders.
Yeah, so they don't want to be 100%, right?
Yeah.
So 2 questions, clarify. We're talking 20 million plus the 10?
20 million.
10's next year.
10 is
Next
next year.
year.
And
They're
20
also
million,
20 million.
yes.
The 10 next year, the 825 is similar to the 600 and whatever we paid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And does this include ongoing legal?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought. Then if you need a decision by August, you said?
September.
September, so we need to work backwards on how many work sessions we're gonna need.
And let me tell you, we're we're setting that as a goal. At the committee, I said, let's pick the end of September. We gotta pick something,
Okay.
if it goes into October because, need 2 readings or, whatever it is, it'll go into October. But we're gonna try setting, it's to give a little bit of urgency as well to the committee that we're working with, and we've got meetings scheduled to basically get this hammered out.
I was just jumping ahead to you about staff time, workload, questions from the board.
Right, well, and again, we do
Get our act together.
have Ian working, because that's really the whole deal. If we put, money in from our water enterprise, we write them out the check, and this doesn't work out, we need to know, do we get made whole? And even if it's not 1 for 1, if we purchase some farms and we have to resell them or do something with them, do we get 95 cents on the dollar? I mean, do we have something coming back to the ratepayers? Right, well, hopefully, I think we just wait out the market at that point. But anyway, so that's what Ian's working on, so I think the next conversation that we have is gonna be, this is what the agreement would do, this is what we negotiated. And again, it's, there's obviously a risk to this project.
I know this is a scary question, but I'll throw it out there. Because this has also been one of my fears since I first heard about the project, in depth when I came onto the council 3.5 years ago. What if one of the 14 communities, maybe a 15th one, et cetera, with Wellington or others that may end up getting involved, but what if there's a community that can't obtain the debt financing, they don't have the cash? How does that play out as far as the other participants? I would assume having to absorb that, and you have a better relationship with all the other communities that are involved with this. I guess I'm just trying to get a sense of, is there a community or multiple that are worried now that the rubber's meeting the road on this project that's been 15 years in the making, either due to their current council, where their finances are at as a community, etc. I'm asking this now so that we don't have a surprise down the line where now Windsor's having to help portion off an extra $2 million or something like that to make up what another community couldn't come up with to still make the project go forward. I know it's a loaded question, I'm just trying to...
I'm not aware of anybody who is looking at wholesale getting out. There are a few communities that are looking at, they would like to sell a portion of what they're in for. Let's see, Erie, Fort Lupton for a little bit more. Evans would like to reduce by 400 acre feet. And then Lafayette, they would like to go from, I think they're 1,800 down to about 1,000. So first shot is who of the NIST participants would like to pick up, if any, more. That would be that'd be the preferable. If that doesn't happen, we can do a couple of things. One would be to market the shares outside of the NIST participant group and see what kind of takers we have. And I'm pretty sure there's some of that. Then it's going to be how close did we get to the full 40, and does the remaining part of the group, do we pro rata the rest and everybody goes up by 5%? That would be probably my preferred. But the alternative would be we scale the project back slightly. We best fit it for a 38,000 acre foot, whatever it turns out to be. And that would, reduce the price a little bit.
Can Northern
We've talked about that, and Northern actually doesn't own any water. Oddly, we don't own a drop, and so we've talked with our board about that, and the decision is, no final decisions, but that would be unlikely.
Or last option is outside equity financing or something like that?
Oh, that would be tough with the water rates that we have. That would be tough.
Well, I would think, just talking to other city managers in northern Colorado and understanding the growth and the real need that NISP is going to address, I would find it highly likely that if the current participants didn't take up the slack, that there's other northern Colorado communities that would take it in. So I think
you have three right in your backyard up here. You have East Larimer County Water District, North Weld Water District, and Wellington, who, quite frankly, the three of those could, I mean, I know Elko is struggling because all they take in is CBT and they can't get CBT, and they're developing the whole area out there by Anheuser-Busch. That's all their service area. They're the kind of the Fort Collins Loveland of the northeast side.
Really?
And then there's another thing called Greeley. But,
I was just curious if there was a big municipality that's, concerned. I know that we talk about we want to get through the record decision without there being any, bumps in the road necessarily, or any, people's a municipality's poker hand that's been laid out that they are having a problem or a disagreement or something, that we want to get to the record decision, and then we'll try to, put all the puzzle pieces together as we need to. As we start to think about what we're in for as a community, when we're already looking at $100 million right now, et cetera, that's.
2 years ago, we hired a firm to at least look at the financial health of everybody. Could they do this? Because if we were running into red flags through that was going to be the first thing. Okay, we got Houston, we have a problem. And through all of that, I think only one, which was Fort Lupton, was having problems. The rest, actually, they were going to have to do some rate increases, but not to the point that it was going to drive, become some death spiral. So I think, and then looking at they then took a stab at a credit rating for the project, and it was AAA, and so it wasn't, or no, let me take that back. Single A, yeah, no, AAA is the top. Single A, but the rate difference between on municipal bonds between the triple and the single wasn't that much, and so with that we felt, okay, at least the financial health seems to be there. Most of the participants have been enacting plans and rate increases
in
preparation. Some for the past 10 years, some more in the past year or two. But virtually all of them have a financial planner on board helping them out with this.
And I think everyone's committed through the record of decision right now.
Yes.
So that's the main goal.
Right, exactly.
Stay in the project.
Yeah.
I know I was asking a pretty preemptive question, but
no, it's a good question.
I know it's scary to bring it up when we're talking about this kind of money amongst 1.2 billion.
It's actually, of things that keep me up at night, it's actually not one of them. There's other scary things like finding dinosaur bones and whatnot that do worry me a bit, but
maybe we should be worried about it.
Well, hopefully with some oil, we can take the mineral rights.
Yeah.
There you go.
So the other thing, the next numbers are probably brand new to you, and this is coming out of a cost model, and this gets to your question about that project cost, and we have developed a cost model or a cash flow model that has put all the project elements in, put in assumed inflation rates, and, I mean, we've just taken a guess. We've put loan rates in, or bond rates, and all of that comes out, and I can click on each participant and get a graph like this for each participant and the group as a whole. So if you were to do complete financing of all the construction, so you weren't bringing any cash to the construction, there is an approximation of the bond payment and then the total payment. The total is all the operation and maintenance and other things that go along with making this project happen. And then obviously the bond payments, they're ramping up. So if you look at out here would be when the first payment, so 2029, so the way it's structured, this would be when the first payment is due on the whole kit and caboodle.
So I assume the steep lines are really draw events.
Yeah.
You're drawing in 2021, and then you're drawing again in 2023, 2025.
And then a final one out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is just Windsor, and the scale on the left says 6,000, and that's not 6,000.
That is, I'm sorry, that is dollar thousands.
Yeah, there's 3 zeros back there.
There's a.
What's the bond term, 20 or 30?
We're figuring 30 years. Well, it would end up being, I mean, the 30-year repayment period, it would be a whole mixture of bonds to make that 30-year repayment period happen.
So after 30 years, then we're just got an annual O&M obligation?
Yeah. Initially, we're looking at something on the order of about $10 million of operation and maintenance costs per year.
One question.
Yeah.
So our payment this year and next year, obviously, that's part of our 100 million.
Mm-hmm.
It's not on top of anything.
Yeah, and to your point, Miles, that this graph reflects the 10 and 20 that we would be.
Yeah. Kind of. Shouldn't 2019 be higher?
Well,
Let's say
2019 was what you paid earlier, or paid at the beginning of the year.
825,
Yeah.
but I thought in September you're going to ask for 1.7. Right.
That would, so this one assumes Windsor is not cash.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But we still have some cash obligation for the normal annual. Gotcha. Okay.
You know, when you lay out a chart, say, okay, what are all the costs per year?
Remember though, this is a Weld County project.
Yeah. Maybe don't say that when you meet with the commission. Okay. And talk about pipelines through the county.
I think Weld County is great.
I'm just gonna say, what's in it for us?
Well, what's in it for them is
I can
a
use it.
very large recreation area.
Absolutely.
That is the biggest, they've asked that question already.
Of course.
And
There's some naming rights on the
Did they
reservoir.
like the answer? Did they like the answer? Okay.
It's actually the recreation area is part of their recreation master plan.
Yeah.
I think it's very, I did the Larimer County 101, and it seems to be something that's very important for these natural resources. And I think it's something their residents are asking for is more recreation.
I think the naming rights on the reservoirs would be good. Amazon's Glade Reservoir.
Yeah.
Google. Wi-Fi on your boat.
So I'm gonna kind of go quickly through the rest here on the ditch company. So as you're aware, a good share of this project is with Larimer and Weld and New Cash. And it's been a kind of a tale of two cities of working with those two companies. New Cash, they actually brought the the thought of should they even negotiate with Northern on having a substitution agreement to their shareholders back in January, and I believe it was like 96% for, which is, I don't know, I mean, I can't believe there's only 4% that were against. So that worked out pretty well. Larimer and Weld has been a tougher nut, and we're still working on that nut. We've had meetings with their board, we're working with their staff. They're not in a no position, but I think they are, you know, what's in it for us, and we're gradually working through that. So this is a map showing where we're making deliveries to those companies. So you come back out of Gailton, head over, actually just a little bit east of Windsor, right along 392. Over by, I think it's Tollbank Creek, is where we go down into the New Cache system. And then up just on the east side of Severance is where we make the delivery to Larimer and Weld. We've gone quite a ways up in their systems, and basically to the point where the majority of the additional land upstream of these introduction points eventually is all going to be urbanized. So what we're telling them is basically we're exchanging in the area that is going to still have water going to it in the future. So we've come up with a concept that is really played out well. It's called Water Secure. It's a risk management tool. So one of the fears that, things that keep me up at night is we do all of this and someone or others start buying out the exchange area. They do buy and dry. The Denver metro area comes up. And so we try to figure out, well, what is something that we can do? And the Water Secure program is that. And it is essentially working with the growers out there, purchasing from them their right to sell to the municipal market. They can still buy and sell within the company. And for that, we'll have to pay a price, but then keeping that water in the company. And that has actually played very well out there. It's been more attractive than I thought it was going to be. I think there is a real fear. You know, you have this, folks don't want to give up the right to sell their water and make the money, but they also don't want to see their neighbors sell their water and make it harder to deliver that water down the lateral to get. So this is trying to kind of get to both of those things, and it's been working out, and talking to folks, working out well. Long term, well, in the short term, so with about $8 million of this interim financing, we're going to buy 600 to 700 acres of land with water associated with it. Long term, we would be selling that property, taking the proceeds, as well as other proceeds from the bonds, and going out and securing covenants, or call them the easement on those properties. Essentially, it's a water easement. I'm not so worried about what they do with the land. I mean, I'm assuming if they're going to keep irrigating, they're not going to subdivide it all that much. But that's kind of the long-term goal, to secure about 20 to 25,000 acres of land out in that area, to make sure that long-term we have something to exchange on, even if everything else gets bought out. That comes at a price tag, and that price tag is largely dependent on what that differential value is between the water being on the property and the water being marketable as an asset. And we're going to find out. Right now we're buying ground for about $11,000 an acre. Talking with some of the growers out there, they said, you know, if they were to be able to buy that property for a couple thousand less, it would be attractive to them. That the 11, 12 is a little rich for them, but if they, this is talking to some of the dairy producers out there. So is the differential $2,000? Is it $4,000? And that's something that honestly, we're not gonna entirely know until we get into the market. And I think that, you know, we're probably gonna have to do some type of bidding process to get people in. How we do that, this is kind of a new thing. And but that will drive whether it's a $50 million program or a $100 million program.
And who's financing that?
That is NIST.
Yes, so
It's part
that
of
would
NIST.
come out of, okay, so will that be an additional cost back to the participants?
Yeah, that is included in that previous slide.
That's included?
Yes.
Okay, because you said it included land purchase. Okay.
Can you, how is this different than buy and dry? I'm not clear on what you're doing.
Yeah.
Well, we call it buy and supply. And basically, in order to have an exchange, we need to have someone taking water from the ditch. So buy and dry is truly, you take the water off the land, put dry up covenants on, it's done. We need them to keep watering. Except the water, at least a portion of the water they're gonna be using is gonna be coming from Gailton. And then we're using the rights that they otherwise would have diverted at the head gate of the Poudre River, and we're transferring those up to Glade.
And you need that to divert off up at Gallatin. Is that right?
No, Gailton's replacing the water. They would only take up higher at Glade, in order to take that water.
I think, John, when you once described it and how I understood it, and I could well be wrong, is that the right to divert up at Gallatin was so junior that they were going to be trying to acquire more senior natural flow rights, I guess, off these ditch company owners, so they could exchange and get into our water more senior upstream.
The project owns the water already, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we already have the water rights, we just need the exchange potential. To get the South Platte water up to Gailton, or Glade.
You said you thought 25,000 acres, is that right? And you, I mean, you've only, I know you bought one piece of land.
We bought two little farms right now, two dinky little farms. One was 25 acres and I think another is 60 acres. I hope they're just cranking out produce.
But you use
right
that
now.
structure where you bought the farms, but they're staying there and they're gonna continue to farm and irrigate?
Both in the Newcash system.
No, one in Newcash, one in Lermerweld, yeah.
And
And the goal will be to eventually dispose of those. Once we get the permit and all litigation is done, so we're safe now, we don't want to be in the land ownership business, and we would sell that back, but keep a covenant on it.
If you're buying the land and with it the water rights, I'm guessing, or
Yeah.
probably the ditch shares,
Yes.
what role do the two ditch companies then play?
In Water Secure, in that part of it, they don't play much of a role. I mean, we're just making sure that the shares don't get sold outside. It's to their benefit because it keeps shares flowing in that area. And, you know.
What's the nature of the negotiation with them then? What are you asked, what do they have to agree to?
Well, ultimately, it's gonna come down to compensation with the companies. They have to agree to a substitution agreement. And so it's going to be, how much are we willing to pay them per year? And probably a lump sum at the beginning for the privilege of using their company as this exchange mechanism.
Since previously they would have gotten their water upstream on the ditch, now you're saying you're gonna deliver it here and here.
Yes.
And that's the change to them.
Yes. And it's not their whole ditch by any means, it's about a quarter. But, yeah.
But this keeps their ditch in business?
This keeps the.
Versus someone that sells
buy and dry.
This keeps the ditch from becoming a water supply and storage company. which is the next one up from Larimer and Weld that Thornton bought. Some regional fringe benefits, you know, it's gonna keep, you know, at least some amount of the ag economy going out there. It may make the transfer of the assets from one, you know, within the family a little easier, just because it's keeping it there. You no longer have the whole thing of, well, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna sell all the assets off? And the associated open space with it. We have been talking to Colorado Open Lands about whether they have interest in helping us. Like many parts of this project, if we can get other folks to help, and there is interest in there. So we're working all angles to see, you know, what can we do, what kind of strings are attached. But if they can find additional funding to help us with this, you know, it's wonderful.
If you're buying 25,000 acres, a big chunk of land, there's gonna be wells on those.
So we won't, the total amount that we'll be buying is probably more on the order of, 700-800 acres in total. The amount that we're gonna be putting covenants or easements on is closer to the 25,000 acres. So if they own wells on them, oil wells, anything that's their deal. Yep. It's theirs. I only took an hour and a half. I thought I get it done in a half hour.
You don't know us.
I got a couple of questions. I think you probably answered the first one already. If we go through years of litigation, 3 years you're saying, and that would probably include appeals, upon appeal or whatever, and it's still, we get an unfavorable ruling, then we would divide up the assets, and the assets would basically be water rights, land, those sort of things. Obviously, you're out the design engineering, you're out legal fees.
You're out all the permitting.
The permitting.
Yeah.
So the assets would be land, water rights, and anything else?
Just primarily the land and the water rights.
Okay.
Yeah. And by water rights, I'm talking about the water on the property. The actual water rights associated with the project have no value outside of you building the infrastructure to make that water right happen.
Okay, and then I see we have exactly 40,000 acre feet for the participants now, correct?
Correct.
And you would expect maybe some shifting, some taking more, some wanting to get rid of some.
Yeah.
And if that didn't happen, if you have several significant dropouts, you're pretty confident that outside the group we have now would probably take up the slack.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
When you look at if the forecasters are even half right, you know, the amount of growth in this region is just well beyond. And actually what this project is providing for is not it does not meet the needs of all the future needs of the NIST participants. There's additional need above and beyond. Now, the other thing that we would have to look at as well is, you know, say there was an economic slowdown, do we build the project more in phases to make it, try to match? Right now, we're going the other way. We're trying to figure out how fast we can bring it on because of the demand is so acute right now. But if it were the other way, you know, there are things that we could do that would phase the project in over time.
Thanks.
Okay.
You have other questions?
I had one. A point of clarification, going back to the 20 million interim financing. If we were to pay cash for our portion, we would pay it up front, and our portion would be based on a cost of $20 million.
Correct.
But there's a chance that we would not, we as a group, as a whole, may not use up the whole 20 million
Correct.
that was budgeted, right?
So the contracts that were talked about, we'll have to discuss. Obviously, you would get the money back. If we don't spend it all, you'll get the money back. It's how do you, so it will sit in an interest-bearing account. And then if it's not used, as typically happens with these when we roll into a different phase, either you'll have the option to roll it into the construction or just take the cash back.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Next steps for us, you're working on potential contract language dealing with the what ifs.
Yeah, and we are gonna kind of look at our rate model assumptions again, kind of take those back out.
Double check that.
You got a chance.
I think we provided what's in the water acquisition.
Right, $4.7 million.
A little $4 million now.
Okay. Right.
If you don't ask John.
So anyway, we'll do both those things. We'll bring this back to the board, and again, I don't think it's necessarily going to be a series of work sessions. I think it could just be one long one where we just kind of peel this thing back and run it through for the board, and then we can get it on an evening agenda right after that.
And our biggest decision will be whether we go cash or.
Well, I mean, the board always has the option of saying, geez, we don't want to go forward with this.
Right, we could.
I should have said that right when he was drinking water, but, I mean, that is.
We got stronger stuff.
That is always the prerogative of this board to say, we are going to continue on, and this is how we think the best way to finance it, and.
Well, and if, I guess, either way we would decide to go, meaning cash or financing, what does that require as far as that not being a budgeted item for this year? That's where we were wondering if we could kick the check till after the first of the year, the budget's been approved.
It would require us to do a supplemental budget.
A supplemental on that.
Oh, we got 4 million, 4.7.
Yeah, so we know we have the cash here, so it's not it has nothing to do with the actual monetary amount. It would just be a budgetary exercise, so we need to do supplemental. Yep.
Right. Okay, well, I know it's longer than you thought, but I gotta tell you, the time spent on this really helps us.
Good.
So.
No, it's a pleasure doing this.
Yeah.
Happily, I just found out a person from that he's an engineer, but he does loans with the Water Conservation Board. He accepted a position with us, and his job is going to be really helping out on the financial side of this. And he loves getting out and talking to folks. So
I thought you said he was an engineer.
I know, that's the thing. He's a strange guy, but
he runs trains, right?
So
and his first name's not John or Thornhill.
What's that?
Or Dennis.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Has David had a chance to ask any more?
I'm sorry.
You tapped out?
Oh, you're
No, I need to, I'm gonna watch the video again.
Oh, he's gonna watch the flyover video again.
And then get digested.
And Carl, could you email John or I a copy of this?
Oh, you want to copy it off right now, Denny?
Perfect. Okay, and I'll email this out to the board.
I'd like to have a link to the flyover video. Because there's a lot of people
gonna come to work for
right, so whenever we know what that link is, we want to get that out there.
I'm looking forward to what he brings.
When a constituent asks about the project or whatever, nice to be able to point.
It's no secret to me that, I worry about the permit, but what all the participants are really worried about is, how are we gonna pay for this? What does that look like?
Yeah, she's only really.
Remember her, she was.
Yeah. Up on.
I know, she's on her way out. She's on her way out.
I thought you were saying for the record, so for the record.
Yeah, September 1, yes, yeah.
She's still there.
I'm looking forward to the help.
He's going to email.
She likes mental health.
Yeah.
I'll put one in.
She's still the mayor for
Okay.
some months.
We're back on task. Roundabouts.
Roundabouts.
Roundabout way of getting to roundabouts.
Okay, so I
Who's on
guess, as a way of perspective, you're talking about NIS, all these numbers will seem comparatively extremely small, so that's the good news.
Yeah, that was smart.
The bad news?
Yeah, the bad news is, this is still real money, so, I think Dennis had updated the board at our last regular meeting and let you know that, we kind of had hot off the press numbers for, the, changes that need to be made on, 7th and New Liberty. Specifically, we had a subgrade issue to the tune of about $85,000. We also needed to cover some existing pipes in there due to the grades, and that was, what, Dennis, like 25,000 or so for that?
The manhole, the grates?
Yeah, no, not manhole grates, the pipes that we had to cover with concrete.
Oh, yeah, that was 15,500.
15,000, okay. So, what we've done is we've basically taken what we've known about 7th Street and added those onto the County Road 13 project. So the board could see, okay, geez, if we end up having a subgrade issue and, we end up spending $85,000, what would that look like? We've also taken a very suggestion and just take the contingency up to 10% and just say, okay, what would that look like? So, we've included two sheets here. The first one, the April 2019, is basically what we presented to you last time. So I just wanted to get this back in front of you so you can say, well, wait a second, what were the numbers a couple months ago and what does this look like? And then we've got the June 19, and so this is kind of the updated figures. If you kind of zoom in, you'll see the New Liberty County Road 13 roundabout and the 7th Street roundabouts are updated with these higher costs. So I think that the 7th Street is basically our best guess now based with these changes. And then of course, the one on 13, County Road 13, I hope is shooting the moon a little bit with high estimates, but we wanted to get something maybe kind of the high level of possibility from board to look at. So that's what we have. Dennis is here, Dean's here. Everybody looks like they've got chips and granola bars, so.
Questions about this?
A question on the two spreadsheets from April of 2019 and then, obviously current, more or less June of 2019. You had the projected balance of 3.75 million in April, but now it's 5.8. What happened?
We did more building permits than we thought we were going to do back in April.
So the additional revenue is related to building permits?
Yes.
But that's assuming we continue on the pace.
Yes.
Through this one, yeah, it's one thing to look at well, we know we did better in those first few months, but.
So that's projected.
That's projected.
So I have the same type of question going down to the bottom, 2024. That's all based on projected building?
Yeah, that's what we have in our revenue projections now.
That's based on,
Building
we don't have
permits.
building permits yet, but we have, what, zoning? What are we basing it on?
Yeah, that's where we get the projected collections. It's
Okay.
based on what we think we're gonna get for building permits.
Okay, and that's based on like our last 2 or 3 year average?
Yeah, and what we still have in the can,
Something's more in the pipeline.
what's still available, like buildable lots, that kind of thing.
Okay, building lots, but not necessarily, okay.
Yeah, and so, we've all seen the houses going in. We all know that so far Windsor's really, on the hottest year on record, following two hottest years on record, or maybe 3 in a row. But what the board really hasn't seen is, in addition to all these homes going up, the planning department is going nuts as well. So there's still a lot of active planning going on up there. So clearly, this could cool down any day. I think we all know it's got to, right? You just can't go up forever. But Windsor has many years of growth and many years of continued growth. So I think any projections, if you look at historically, well, they were wrong because you projected this and it was that. But this should give you a little bit of a sense, not only in the short term, You know, obviously 1920, which we feel more confident about. But as we look at future expenditures and you kind of offset that with the growth we're projecting, you know, I don't believe our balance in 2024 is going to be $17 million.
Yeah,
I don't believe that. I think that we're going to, one, I think we're going to identify other projects that are high community projects, but you know, it's not a totally Pollyannish on the revenue side. I think it's kind of based on many years.
Right. Okay.
I guess in that regard, Dean, you've got, it looks like, if I look 2020 going forward, you go from 3.94, 4.1, 4.2, it almost feels like you're just adding an inflator to it year over year. Just because it's a fairly consistent amount.
Like I said, we base it on the number of permits we expect. And then I think in those numbers, you are correct, we did add a little bit of an inflator to it. You know, a couple % per year.
And that's, so it almost looks like you've assumed the same number of permits going forward, but then inflating it by 2% or something.
Yeah.
Because the numbers are all just bumping up by a little. Is that what feeds, say 2020, 3.9 million? Is what feeds that number primarily just building permits? Or is it other fees?
No, building permits. We collect these road impact fees at the time of the building permit. So it is, you know, the short answer to your question is it's based on the number of building permits we expect to get.
Yeah. So if there is a downturn in the economy or something slows down, but then we adjust our projects.
Right, that's right, yeah, since these are all capital, there's just the meeting in August before we go through the CIP, it gets to be a lot quicker.
I have a question. Okay.
Go ahead, your question. Well, I'm just going to
Mine's a little
reiterate
different.
my
Mine's a
sentence
little-
from last meeting.
Yeah.
I think this process has been terrible, and I blame us as a board, it's not staff. This should have been bid out. This was a pocket deal because we thought we were getting a good price. And it's right back to where we started, or where we thought from where the other roundabouts ended. So I think, I won't support something like this again in my short tenure. This should have been bid out.
Sounded like a good deal, but it's hard to get to below that 1.2 million that we have on roundabouts.
And now we're stuck, and we've maybe back next
already
month
started
with
one, right.
another change. I don't know, we've had changes every step of the way.
I have a question, this may be getting into the concrete too much, instead of the weeds. Okay, I know a little bit about fly ash and costs, and we're using fly ash to strengthen the soils. Is the contractor, it's really pretty cheap, like Platte River Power Authority is basically trying to give it away because they have to get rid of it. So are we being charged, overcharged by the contractor? That's my bottom line question, I guess. Or do we know?
I couldn't answer that question.
I wonder if we even know. They have to pay generally for the transportation of it, but it's not a whole lot, so I was just wondering how much.
There's a big
I'm wondering if the contractor is inflating their costs beyond what they need to. If we have any way of even knowing.
We wouldn't know.
We wouldn't know, would we?
There's a lot of work to incorporate that into the soil. There's a large machine that's like a
Mhm.
giant rototiller that
Yeah.
this fly ash goes out on top of the ground, and then you have to mix it with the soil
Mhm.
down 12 inches deep.
Mhm.
And then you also have to incorporate water, and you have to grade it, and you have to compact it, because now it's real
The
fluffy.
material's pretty cheap, but the process.
Yeah,
I think
it
is-
probably
okay.
is.
Okay.
Well, I said, I can't remember if I said in the meeting, I know I said, Shane, when we suddenly heard that these costs were going up, or that, yeah, you know, it's like,
Mhm.
well, stop the presses, should we just bid this out?
Mhm.
We'd been in the same place, right? Because they would have bid on a contingency,
We don't
they
know.
would have said, we don't know what we're gonna find.
We don't know.
Well, no, they would, well, once you've scraped the topsoil on everything, now you know, but, you know.
But with 3 people bidding, maybe it's all of a sudden.
Where are we at in the
Little
process
competition.
with the roundabout? Because I've driven by a lot recently and it doesn't seem like anything's going on. Do they have to slow down because of our having to get approval to spend more and fly ash and?
Well, they had to wait to line up the fly ash contractor.
Oh.
And of course, that was the next step they needed to do, is to start working the subgrade and shaping it. And they couldn't do that until they incorporated the fly ash. So, yeah, it was there's a little bit of a wait time.
We have kind of a delay because of that then?
Yeah. He took last week he took an aerial drone photo and sent it to us. I mean, you can see it taking shape from the aerial photo. And I believe it's this week, they're gonna get into actually constructing concrete. So it'll start.
What's the timing on it now?
I haven't talked to them myself lately. You know, they were shooting to get it done right before school started, which is like August 14th, something like that.
Yeah.
My crystal ball says they aren't gonna make that. But I haven't talked to them lately to
Yeah.
see what they're
So
doing.
we are at 1.16 million right now. What's the odds that that is gonna go up even more?
Well, like we talked about at the evening meeting, and I say this, you know, just representing that I don't have any control over this, so
Right.
once you're past the subsurface and you get into the knowns, you know, when you're back to your big quantities of asphalt and the roundabout, the things that can, the moments have reduced a lot. So I don't know what would happen to increase it
Okay.
above that.
We don't have any protection, though, do we? I mean, we don't have a contract with the developer that says this is what we're
Do
paying.
not exceed.
Do not exceed.
The contract says that if it exceeds the amounts that were quoted to us back initially, that it must be approved by official action of the Windsor Town Board. So what we presented to you the last time we talked about this was a preview of approvals that we were going to ask you to make, official approvals.
Because clearly, like, when it's subgrade, we couldn't say, okay, well, never mind, let's just.
Well, I still
you know.
never started this.
Yeah, so it was kind of it's a bit specious because the town board, if you said, okay, fine, this over budget, let's not do it.
We got a hole in the ground then, right?
Yeah, that's right.
The cars-
No, just blacktop right over the soil now that we know it's got the
Right,
problem.
right. Then the cars fall in anyway, so, okay, yeah. So but my understanding, I'm just reiterating, we're committed to that one. And if it's gonna be more than 1.1 million, they would come back and ask us to approve again, probably.
Yeah, if there are any other issues with this project, staff will do the same thing where we'll let the board know, look, this came up, this is the cost.
Wasn't it essentially, because I brought this up, there was already the $48,000 contingency, and it was about 108
Yeah,
done,
that's
so
what
it was
we
about a
got.
$60,000 increase is
Right.
what we had.
And we have not made a commitment on the other one yet.
We are under contract, I mean, we've got an IGA.
Okay.
But they're not under construction yet.
Okay. I'm asking just to clarify, I'm personally in favor, I think we need to do it, bite the bullet, but I agree with, we should have done bids, but.
We still could.
We are where we are. We could on that one, couldn't we?
So if what you're asking is, can we withdraw from the IGA for the other roundabout, for the County Road 13 roundabout?
Yeah, I'm not saying I want to, I'm just asking for clarification of where we are.
My legal opinion is you may.
Okay.
There could be some damages to the other party because they may have relied on the contract to incur some costs. So to the extent there was reliance, then my advice is gonna be satisfy that gap, pay that, reimburse those expenses. But, you know, all of these transactions between governments are subject to annual appropriation, and in this case, the funds haven't been appropriated. It exceeds what was budgeted. So as to the County Road 13 roundabout, you could withdraw from that, pay whatever reliance damages are out there, if any, and say, you know what, either we're gonna go back to Plan A, which was put a traffic signal there, or if we're going to do a roundabout, we bid it.
Or we move forward and learn from the experience, I guess.
In Dennis, in your opinion, do you think we could do better on 13? I mean, right now we've got this at 1.17 million. I mean, is that?
No, I wouldn't expect that you could. Maybe, you know, as far as costs that have been incurred, the developer or Metro District has incurred design costs. So if you pulled out today, I'm sure you would owe that.
You think they designed 13 already?
Yes. Which is on the order of 66,000. And something that I'll say about the flash, you know, going into the 7th Street project, unless we would have done a lot of soil exploration before we started it, before we bid it, and say we would, which may have allowed us to identify, here's the areas that we will have to flash. If we hadn't done that, and we bid it, and you get a contractor in a contract, and he gets in there, and it's soft and not stable, and we can't build a road on it, and we say, gotta do something here, guys, and they say, how about flash? Say, okay, you'd have to pay for that too. So, and if you go into a contract and you say to a contractor, we're bidding this out and you have to cover no matter what comes along, you will pay for it in the bid. So, one way or another, you pay for it.
Okay.
That answers my question.
What's warranty like on something like this?
I don't think we identified a warranty on this.
So we don't have a warranty?
Is it in the IGA? I don't.
Yeah, the warranty would flow to the district because the district is the contractor's customer.
Okay, so if we went out in a couple of months after it's finished and there's a sinkhole,
Then
we go after the Metro District.
Right.
Although our construction inspectors, I would assume, are spending a lot of time out there, right? I mean, we've got.
They're spending some time. I can't portray it as a lot because they
Okay.
have way too many other projects that are going on. So,
But like every other road that's built in Windsor, we've got construction inspectors taking a look and.
And it's guaranteed for X amount of years.
typical warranty, if you're a developer building a subdivision
Right.
in Windsor, and so you're building new roads and through a green field,
Yep.
You have to cover it for 1 year.
Okay.
And then it gets dedicated to the town, right?
Isn't that how we handled 7th and Eastman Park? I mean, Water Valley Parkway, you know, I mean, do we have a warranty, like the 1-year warranty, just in case there's?
Yeah, there was a warranty on that, because 7th and Eastman, that was bid out, that was a Windsor project, and that contractor was under contract to Windsor.
To us.
So it was identified in there.
So when that's the case, we build in a warranty then?
And again, the 1 year makes sense just because if you're gonna have any issues with the road, if you've got a subgrade, if you've got something that's going on, it's usually evident after a year. You know, it's not gonna show up 5 years later, it's gonna show up pretty quickly.
So when the 13th talked about, I heard a couple people talk about bids, but if we do bid, would be, they've already spent how much on design?
66,000.
66,000. So one question that we'll have to talk about is, do we want to do bids, do we want to do the 13? And when do we need to make decisions on that?
Well, I would say tonight, we need to discuss that because they're moving forward. I wanted to get this in front of the board, right after 7th, but really before they're underway. So I think once they're under construction on 13, you know, the milk's out of the cow.
But they're waiting for 7th to be done
Well,
before they're breaking ground on 13.
I believe that's their plan, Paul, but I can't guarantee that they're not gonna be able to break off part of the crew and get started 2 weeks ahead of that or something, you know, just I really, I don't wanna hear it, oh, by the way.
It's just a traffic snarl if we had both ends of New Liberty under construction.
Right, at one point though, they did have that was kind of the traffic plan.
It really wouldn't be, I don't think, a serious traffic snarl, because you have Covered Bridge Parkway that connects to Liberty. Also, we're gonna build a shoe fly around 13 for north-south people. So I think you could have both under construction and not have serious problems.
Dennis, was the 66 all that they're showing in terms of having incurred today?
Well, 66,000 is what they had in for
Right.
engineering, that's what they've told us. And the design is done, so I assume it's
Fully spent.
Right.
So if I can organize the questions, one question is, do we want to pursue the roundabout on 13th? Second question is, do you want to put it out for bid or just go with existing contractor?
Or third, I suppose, is put up a traffic light instead of a road.
Well, that's another option.
Right. My vote would be to go with the roundabout.
We're not
as
positive.
planned for two reasons. Number one, that we're probably not gonna save any money, and but my primary reason would be just the timing of putting it out to bid. Over the 4th of July, I was talking to Vice President of Estimating for one of the construction companies that builds a lot of the roads around here, is kind of telling me that putting stuff out to bid this time of year, when they're all really busy, and I want to get your thoughts, the bids are gonna come in high versus doing them, say, maybe in the spring or something.
Yeah, that's probably true, especially if
Yeah.
you're gonna say, we wanna bid this out, we wanna get it done just like that.
And
They're gonna go, we're booked up the rest of the
Yeah,
construction season.
So he's kind of warning me about bidding big projects in this time of year into the fall, because they're trying to they're also busy that it's gonna drive the cost up. And so, yeah, so I'd like to do the roundabout, and then, like Miles said, I think we kind of tried this, and it, wasn't a huge success, or didn't save us a lot of money. We have to come back to the table a bunch of times and talk about it. So I think just try to learn from this, we're gonna do more roundabouts, I think, in the future, and we just kind of learn from it and how we approach the next one and be more efficient.
I would argue that we're actually still under cost of what it would have been had we bid it out. And Dennis could probably confirm this number off the top of his head, but I know Eastman and 7th was 1.2, I believe. I know it was over $1 million. 1.2.
1.1 to 1.2, somewhere in there.
And that was 2 years ago, 2 years ago, 2 summers ago?
2 or 3.
And without the subsurface.
Right, and they didn't even have the subsurface issues, so, my only point is that I think we would have been higher than what?
Is this yours, Ian?
That's mine.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I thought somebody was peeking in the window.
The broker was just texting you.
Bug.
Sell, whatever, sell.
Not that we're on TV anyway.
Well, and if we try to
Go ahead, but go ahead, Paul.
No, you're right. I mean, we all understand how we got to this point. At the same token, had this been bid, or should I say budgeted with a 10% contingency, we'd have this extra 60,000 covered. And we wouldn't even have had to come back to us, because it would have been within the contingency amount. So my only point is, we know that if we would have bid this out and had inflation built on top of the 1.2 we paid for 7th and Eastman, we know it would have been in north of 1.2. We're maybe not even going to make that 1.2 amount with having this done. So anyhow,
We're not done yet.
I understand. I also, let me follow up to what I was going to say though. But if we said, hey, we can still get a traffic light done at 13 before the end of the year, that's still $350,000 on top of the 1.2 or whatever that we spend on this. So we're still over 1.5, and we only bid 700,000, 350 for each light. So my point is that I don't know, even though we're talking about both roundabouts being a total of 2.5, roughly, my point is that we only bid 700, or budgeted 700, 350 for each light. So however we look at this, we're still over what we had budgeted for this year. So my point is I don't know that two wrongs make a right in this situation, so.
And no matter what you do at 13, if it's either bidding it out or doing a light, you've got the cost of terminating the existing contract, which we know is at least 66. You gotta add that to the cost of any other option.
On top of a 350 light, so you're still over 400.
And I'm guessing 66 is not gonna be the number.
Right.
So.
Probably a safe bet that
What do you guys think?
Be a bigger number.
I have another question.
I agree.
What was that? I emailed you and I apologize, I forgot. Is that engineering fee or something, is that?
Management fee?
Yeah. Is that a fixed price or capped, or is that?
That's a time and materials not to exceed 17, and that's only if we get under construction. So that's for the engineering firm.
But it's not a flat fee, it's based on their hours.
That's what they said
They'll
they
track
would
hours.
do, yeah.
I'd say we ride it out, just as we planned. I mean, we all voted, it sounded great up front, 650 versus 1.2 million, and we all jumped on that. And I think the good news is we're probably not any farther behind than if we bid it out. You have, who's doing this? Crow
Crow Creek.
and we've had good experience with them in the past.
Yeah, they're building all the rain dance. They've done a lot of this kind of work.
I guess I'd be in favor of proceeding as we planned.
Well, we've always talked about safety is number one, and we know this area is gonna be increasing traffic in the next few years, and roundabouts are much safer, and, you know, I agree. We tried something, you know, and it looked good, we tried it.
Too good to be true is what we learned.
That's always a rule, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, you know, and probably no one's fault. But, you know, it's still cheaper than what we probably could have done, so safety, still cost effective. You know,
But even at like
so-
7th and Eastman Park, had we had a contingency come in that was greater
Yeah.
than what was budgeted,
We would
it
still-
still would have been coming back to us going,
Right.
we ran into this unforeseen problem there.
So just enable.
So I think it's still one of those things.
So it sounds like we have agreement to.
Okay, and I don't know, David, I haven't heard David actually.
No,
Okay.
I thought I heard you yell, so make it happen.
Okay, yeah, so again, yeah, we'll continue as we have been going and try to keep the board updated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Where are we at on the 13 in Eastman, or 13 and New Liberty? Because did we only do a 5% contingency there? And I know that you had said that there may be
I thought you looked at.
flash that needs to happen there as well, so.
Well,
I mean,
and so on the
Yeah.
estimate that you have now, when you
Yeah.
look at the road impact fees, June of 2019, that number reflects both $85,000 is if we're gonna have to do fly ash on the entire thing, and then we also did the contingency up to 10,000, or to 10%, which is,
It's 1.16,
Yes.
same as.
yeah, so basically, what we
Assume-
showed you tonight in the
assume the same
budget,
thing.
it assumes all that stuff was wrong. So, and,
Okay.
okay?
Future meetings,
The Gary Wilson Memorial.
anything you want to point out, or?
The next meeting, we are gonna have Fair and
Nice
Clear's
statue on the wall.
present to the board. And so they're doing our transportation master plan. We are not done with our TMP, but one of the measurables we had for them is, let's get some quick win projects in front of the board
Yeah.
right before we go into kind of our capital improvement plan this year. So really they're gonna present, I think we're down to 6 projects that they want you to consider basically for us to roll into the next year's CIP. So again, they're not done, but I just wanted with the timing, because I don't think they're gonna finish until December or January. And I didn't wanna miss an entire budget year with all these projects the community's identifying, and then just have 2020 just sitting on our thumb. So that's really the presentation you're gonna get. And then we'll also have like Greeley Evans Transit, just an update on the timing on that.
I'm gonna be out next week.
I've seen, I'm down on Main Street, I've seen their buses cutting through, and I wonder if they're like timing their routes. I've seen the Get buses coming through Windsor here and there.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, too.
Oh, I guess you're on Main, right? So you
Oh,
can
yeah.
just sit there and
Move my
rock
office
chair.
to the front. Yeah, move my office to the front, so I lived up Main Street all day. Wait for the phone to ring.
What the hell is that, a kid?
I'm really excited about next week's work session, and I'm gonna be gone, but I'll be looking forward to.
Oh, you're gonna be gone
gone
as
next
well?
week?
I'm gone next week.
Yeah,
you know.
you're up.
You know,
Do we have
Christy's
anything
back.
that-
Christy's back.
Do
got
we have
a
any
board meeting.
ordinances, Ian, that we're gonna need 5 votes on?
The smoking ban is coming back on second reading because we must have miscalculated your availability. The idea was that we would present that with a full board. So Eric may ask that we further delay second reading.
Well, have we already
It'll be
advertised
5
that though?
Don't need to advertise.
22nd.
Okay.
It just doesn't leave any room for something.
Somebody posted it on Nextdoor. There was a discussion, and somebody posted our second reading thing.
About the smoking?
Yeah.
For the 22nd.
There's still 5, right? And
Yeah, so it was just a citizen,
So if one
like took a
person votes,
screenshot and clip from our agenda or whatever, saying second reading on this
Do that when
day.
It's all set.
That's the usual practice, is to,
It's the usual.
yeah,
And
is
some dude was like,
Yeah.
not to
smoke
assume
wherever I
a
want.
unanimous.
Right.
Right, yeah, I mean, I've
Then
That's
heard.
probably safer,
Then
that's,
have it go down and
that's better.
start over.
that's pretty protocol.
So it's,
Okay,
it's not going into effect till January, so.
you got it.
We have
Right,
time.
so
That's
if
a
we
good
can
point.
table it, let's maybe consider doing that, because I would like to give, again, you know, just, you know, we need 5, it's nice to have at least 6 there.
So, if I may, there is also an executive session that we wanna have that night. You may wanna think about rescheduling that too, Shane, cause it's a big enough deal that.
Yeah, well,
If we can't wait, I don't know what your schedule looks like. I mean, I hate to propose it, but we could always do a special session for an executive where we just come in some evening and knock it out. I don't know if we need everybody there and it's time. We have no idea what it is, right? So, it's your call.
Yeah.
Well, it's just to instruct negotiators, no official action would be occurring, so is that something that other board members, the two that are missing for sure, couldn't be informed at a later time as to what was covered?
It's a pretty.
It's a big topic.
Yeah, it's a big topic. It really is something where more brains are better than.
Especially ours.
Exactly.
Tom,
So we'll talk, and so are you both out the entire week?
Yeah.
Not me, I'll be back. We're going to Mount Rushmore, just a little family.
I'm in Canada.
Okay, sounds like.
You can come back if you want to.
I could. I'm trying to figure out if we can get cell service.
Well,
So let's look at the upcoming agenda here. Is everybody planning on being here the 5th of August?
Yes, my plan.
Yes. Okay.
I'm not going anywhere, sadly.
What's that do with the executive session thing?
We'll just have to think about whether we.
You're gonna go to Canada.
I mean, there's not a clock ticking on that matter.
Well, I feel like there is a clock though.
Okay.
Okay, well, we can talk.
Well, the 29th is open, right? I hate to.
Is that the 5th?
Yeah.
It is, other than I won't be here then.
where are you going?
Taking the kids to Disneyland.
Oh, man.
I thought you already did that.
No, I've just been.
You know that fifth Mondays are discretionary, they may.
That's awesome.
He's made that same comment when I was like, no.
Oh, yeah, I did.
I have learned. The 29th man has taught me the fifth Monday is it's like a holiday.
It's a religious event. It's a religious experience.
Isn't there a past board member that pointed out that we shouldn't meet on those days or something?
Yes.
History there?
Yes.
Yes.
Was it I?
Who was it?
BC.
What was his idea?
I heard it was BC.
Oh, yeah. He was,
Okay, so that's kind of an option.
Okay,
That's
well,
not an option, but.
so what we can do, let's talk about it a little bit tomorrow. And, so I think the two options, one are to kind of go with Barry's suggestion, say, geez, do we meet on July 25th? Do we pick a date later that week and just have a special meeting for an executive session? I know we can't get 7 of you there, but we could get 6, and so that's one option. The other one is to just kind of postpone this until August 5th.
What exact days are you out?
I'll come back Tuesday. I can't do the 25th, though. I have a meeting in Laramie County.
I'm out of town the 25th and 26th, so I can't do it.
I know you just threw it out as an idea, but this.
Okay, well, and maybe.
Wednesday.
Tuesday.
Should we send you, each of us send you a text of when we're not here? What would be the easiest way? What, do you want to write it down?
Not yet. Let me, because I think the other thing is to just let, because you're gonna instruct negotiators, and so the party that we're negotiating with, we may just need to let that party know that this thing needs to be on August 5th, because we're just don't have enough people in the room to make the decision. So that may be the cleanest way to handle this.
Well, and it's really not a matter of decision so much as it is making sure everybody's aware of what's going on.
That's a big one, I guess. Okay.
Can people dial in remotely, or I'm assuming we don't do that in executive sessions?
You can do that.
Can we?
We can do that.
Oh, I can't.
Because there's no voting, there's no action taken, you're just participating.
The only thing is though, I've done that, I've been on the other end of the phone, and it's really hard to catch a lot of key conversations.
Right.
It's, maybe it's a last resort, but that is pretty tough.
And head nods and notes being passed.
I could come in and just get debriefed separately if that's.
I could do that too.
That's true.
If that's legal, I don't know.
Got back on the.
Yeah, it is legal. We've done that before.
Okay, we'll consider all these options, because nothing, we'll consider all this.
If you could have it, and then Ken and I can come in at our leisure.
I'm coming back on that Sunday, the 28th or whatever it is.
Oh.
So maybe like that evening.
Curious, I wanna know what it is.
At your house.
Let's go right there unpacking and doing laundry.
But
salmon jerky and moose head.
Yeah, since we're having to do it, you're gonna pay for it.
You guys are good. Okay, anything else we need work session tonight, or are we done? We are done. Thank you. It's still daylight.
Ken's usually good for Crown.
I don't buy it out.
A what?
Recycled it.
I need to get some.
Give it to Karen. See?
What do you think?
Forward.
Oh,